Hello, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to take a look at an upcoming release from DC Comics. It's Superman the Triangle Era Volume 2 Omnibus. Now, much like I did when the first volume was announced, I sat down and did a preview video talking about the stories and the issues that volume contained, and I wanted to do the same thing here with Volume 2. So first, I'm just going to read off just some numbers to rattle off the issues. Superman 64 to 77, Adventures of Superman 487 to 499, Action Comics 674 to 686, Superman the Man of Steel 9 to 21, Justice League America 69, which is one of the Doomsday tie-in issues. Then there's Superman Legacy of Superman #1, Supergirl Team Luthor Special #1, and News Time: The Life and Death of Superman #1. Now, as you can tell just from that list alone, this book ends at the death of Superman. There's been some commentary from fans that I've seen reactions to questioning why they're including the death of Superman in here, because there's essentially there is enough content to just have this be from where it starts to then end right before the death of Superman, because this volume I think is about the volume 2 is about 180 to 100 pages more than volume 1. There's been some debate as to, we all have, as fans of the stories, fans of this era, the death and return of Superman has been reprinted to death. We actually have, multiple printings of the Omnibus. They're widely available in trade paperback, and there seems to be always some version of that story in print. So the hardcore fans are wondering, we were kind of expecting the volume 2 to be the middle stories, and then volume 3 to be the death and return of Superman, just as a rebranded as volume 3 of the Triangle Era. I wanted to talk about the issues and the stories first, and then I'll kind of give a little more of my thoughts as to the approach that DC is taking later on. Now, the volume kicks off with Superman number 64, which is a great standalone story entitled Metropolis Mailbag. Now, that's a story that is set at Christmas time, and it's a kind of a character study in Superman in what he does every year is around Christmas time. He goes to the post office and he answers letters that people have written to him and asking for help. It's a look at what Superman can and cannot do, in what ways he can help, in what ways he cannot help. There's just some things that are outside the realm of something that a superhero can help with, but still these people ask of him of these things, and it shows that his internal struggle as to not being able to address certain issues, and it's just a wonderful character study issue. And then the next issue is another kind of Christmas-themed issue. It's Adventures of Superman 487, Christmas in Suicide Slum. And that's an issue that kind of features a lot of the supporting cast of Metropolis, which is what makes the Triangle Era so good and so interesting, is the cast of Metropolis that surrounds Superman. Now that features like Jimmy Olsen, Bibbo Bapowski, and a bunch of other characters, but that's a good way to kind of kick this volume off with two Christmas themed issues. Now, originally in volume 1, when the solicits came out, the Metropolis mailbag issue was included in volume 1 as the last issue that it was going to contain, and I actually like that they bumped that from 1 to 2 because it's a great way to kick this one off in that character study of Superman. After that, you have a pretty big story in Panic in the Sky. It's an 8-part story that crosses over all 4 titles, and that is a fantastic story that it features Brainiac, and in many ways it's a wonderful prelude to the death of Superman, because the meatiest part of the death and return of Superman is when Superman is dead, what his absence means to the DC universe. Panic in the Sky is a story that highlights his leadership, his role as the leader of the heroes. There's this great big world threat in Brainiac, and it shows Superman's ability to pull together, heroes, villains. One of the people that he recruits to help out is Deathstroke, the Terminator. So it just shows his ability to unite in a time of crisis. It's a story that's not been reprinted all that often, but it's a really wonderful story. I like that this volume will kind of lead with that. There's those first 2 Christmassy issues, but it's a wonderful blockbuster type story to have early on in the volume, which is great. After that, there's a couple issues, Action Comics 676 and 677. It establishes, so after Panic in the Sky, Supergirl returns to Earth, and this is the Matrix version of Supergirl, which is the kind of the alien, the shape-shifting alien who assumes the identity of Supergirl, and it's an interesting, because I feel like for me, when I started reading the comics, I jumped on board at the death of Superman. So I didn't know that this version of Supergirl was an alien. I was very confused when Doomsday punched her and she turned into like this gray goo. but these issues here establish that her return to Earth. It establishes how she gets kind of hooked up with Lex Luthor II, the son of Lex Luthor. But yeah, those are great to see and establish that kind of important relationship that you see. Those two issues really set up that dynamic between Lex and Supergirl, and that's kind of a key relationship throughout this era. And so the next issue is Superman 68, which is it's kind of so. When I mentioned Deathstroke teamed up with the heroes in Panic in the Sky, Superman 68 is an issue where kind of brings things back to normal, where Deathstroke is at odds with Superman, and he has an issue where they are fighting, and then that issue also leads into an issue of Deathstroke, but that's not included here. But it's just a great way to show that, in time of crisis, Deathstroke was there, but then when things are back to normal, they were at odds and no longer, allies. Next, there's Adventures of Superman 491, which is it's a good Superman versus Metallo story, and the kind of the highlight of this issue is there is a. Actually, the art is great in that one. It's a Tom Grummett art, but that issue kind of brings the Cerebus storyline to a close. Now, the Cerebus storyline was one that it was set up to be this really big, important story that was kind of hinted at for a while, and it kind of went on for a bit, and then it just kind of abruptly ended. And I'm not really sure. I always wondered what the story was with that. Maybe just the fan reaction wasn't super positive to it, so they kind of put an end to it. But it did seem to kind of end abruptly. But yeah, that part of that story comes to a close. Then with Action Comics 678, that's an important issue because you learn the secrets of Lex Luthor too. So Lex Luthor 2 he presents himself as the son of Lex Luthor, but in reality, it's Lex Luthor's brain in a new cloned body. And this issue talks about how Lex was able to fake his death and how he was able to get his brain inside of this new, younger, stronger body. So that's, again, when I started reading with Death of Superman, I had no idea. I was like, what? I don't know who this red-haired Lex is. No clue. But that's a kind of a key issue to set up, how that all came to be. Next up, there's Superman 69, which is a story with Agent Liberty in Superman. Now, Agent Liberty is a character another character that Dan Jurgens created, and this is a story that it kind of like Agent Liberty is, he means well, but his ethics and his moral code are not the same as Superman's. So they are at odds, even though they have similar goals. They approach them differently, and this is a story that kind of shows that dynamic. And if you kind of note, just in reading the issues so far, there's a lot of Superman kind of team up issues here, where it's one issue or two issue stories where it just kind of features a kind of a guest appearance of a character, but less of the big stories like in the Volume 1. There was Time and Time Again, Blackout, the Red Glass trilogies. There are more stories that crossed over into all the titles, whereas these are just kind of smaller stories, not the big kind of epic crossover stuff. And speaking of after the Agent Liberty issues, and there's a couple issues where Superman teams up with the new Robin of the time, Tim Drake. They take on some vampires. That's a fun 2-issue story. And then after that, there's another crossover story, which is the Blaze Satanus War. Another kind of often forgotten, I think, story of the era. It's a real fun one. It's a story of two demonic twins, Blaze and Satanus, and they kind of wage a war against each other. and the citizens of Metropolis get mixed up in that battle. And yeah, that's just it's a fun story, again featuring a lot of the supporting cast that surrounds Superman. After that, another 2-issue story that's a very poignant story where it's called Crisis at Hand, and it's where Superman deals with the issue of domestic violence. Now, there's some neighbors of Clark Kent who are, there's this guy who's beating his wife, and it shows the internal struggle that Superman that he has in what he can and cannot do, and what he should and should not do, and how to address those issues as Clark Kent, and maybe not as Superman, or how just how to best approach something like that. And yeah, it's just, again, it's Superman can only do so much, and I love there's stories like this that focus on that internal dilemma that he has. And then after that, it ramps up into the Doomsday Prelude issues, so which is the 4 issues leading up to the official kickoff of the Doomsday story. You had those were the issues where the final page was a Doomsday cameo, where you saw that the Fist kind of breaking out of his containment cell. And now in each of those issues, what's fun about those, and actually let's see, one where he's it's Superman dealing with the Underworlders, which actually that crosses over. That's still going on in Man of Steel 18 when the official kickoff of Doomsday. But you have Superman and the Underworlders. There's an issue where he kind of visits the Linear Men and Wave Rider, and there's a fun issue where he tangles with Mr. Mxyzptlk. Always say that wrong. I have no idea if that's correct, incorrect, whatever. And then there's an issue where featuring the Jackal, this newer version of the character, the Jackal. And what's fun about those issues is the page before the Doomsday cameo page, they all kind of feature a mention or foreshadow death in some way. So it's kind of fun to see them plant those seeds that the Superman's death is coming. So that's not necessarily something you would pick up on an initial read through, but going back, hindsight's 2020, you can see the breadcrumbs that they were planting in those issues for sure. And after that, it really kind of kicks into high gear, and the rest of the volume 2 is the death of Superman stuff, the death of Superman, and then the funeral for a friend issues, and then what I like that it contains all of the so at the end of Funeral for a Friend, with Superman issue number 77, it just kind of was. It was labeled as the end of Superman comics. Superman was dead. They had the funeral to show the aftermath, and then that was it. There was I think it was like a 3-month pause in publication of Superman comics. Now, at the time, it wasn't billed as a 3-month pause. It was billed as hey, that's it. Superman is gone, so no more comics. But in that meantime, just to have something, to publish, to featuring some of those characters, they had the fill-in issues. There was the Legacy of Superman #1, which showed, like characters like Gangbuster, and it showed Metropolis operating under the new norm of Superman being gone. And then there's the Superman, or the Supergirl and Lex Luthor team up special, which again it's showing who is doing what to fill the void that Superman has left. And then the News Time, The Life and Death of Superman #1, that is it's a magazine that it's like an in-universe magazine published by has photographs by Jimmy Olsen in it, and it's a fun look at life in Metropolis in reaction to Superman's death. So it's just a fun kind of like a news magazine publication from the DC universe. So that was fun to see. Again, just something they could have on comics shelves to sell something in the absence of Superman in the meantime. So to have all of that stuff is really fun. Now, the fan reaction so far that I've seen, questions that said like, why do I have to buy a book that contains the stories that I already have multiple formats of, multiple editions of in the death of Superman. But to that, I would say this. there are a lot of different types of readers. There's diehards like me that will buy any volume or any new edition of that story that comes out. Yeah, for instance, they're coming out with the absolute edition of Death of Superman, which is great. I mean, that to me, that's long overdue. I love that larger format. Any way to get the that art in the largest format possible, I'm on board with that. But here, we already have an omnibus that has the Death and Return of Superman, and there's been multiple printings of that. But there's also a different type of reader, and that reader just wants a lengthy run of comic books, a lengthy run of Superman comic books. And now, the Triangle era has widely been known as a really impressive feat in publication, the way that they were able to tie the four titles together, the way it was all, spearheaded by the editor, Mike Carlin, to kind of coordinate all those stories, to have each series had their own plot threads, but they all were telling one story. And it's such an impressive feat that they did. So to have that run of comics reprinted in omnibus form is fantastic. Here's the other thing. Now, just from a strictly aesthetics point of view, if they were to say, end volume 2 before Death of Superman, and then just reprint the Death and Return as a volume 3, as a new Triangle era volume 3, we would be, anybody who's buying volume 1 and volume 2 would be compelled to then also buy the volume 3 just to have it look uniform on a shelf. Because if they didn't do it that way, it would be volume 1, volume 2, volume 3 would then be the Death and Return of Superman that we have already, which is not the same, wouldn't have the same spine look here. And that would look kind of, broken up on the shelf. So one of the appeals of these big collected editions are the eye appeal of what they look like on a shelf. Yeah, they're great to read, but they're not like super easy to read. So they're fun to kind of pick up and leaf through. But for me, I really like having them displayed on a shelf because it's a physical representation of the stories that I love. And so I would have purchased a standalone volume 3, and it would be the exact same contents of the Death and Return omnibus that I already have. And that, to me, I don't know that I would have loved that. I would have done it, but I wouldn't have loved it. So in this way, I like that we get a book, this volume 2, that's going to end where the publication pause happened. It kind of recreates that feeling of, this is the end. This is the end of the book. Now, obviously, it's not, but it's just I like that it kind of presents itself that way. That it'll read that the end of this book will be the end of that chapter of Superman stories, and then Volume 3 will kick off with Adventures of Superman 500 and the reign of the Superman, and then leads into the return, and then all of the post-return stuff. So I think that's fun. I think it's a good way to kind of appease multiple different types of readers, and there will be anybody that complains that they're rebuying the same story. It's a justified complaint. It's just we then have to decide if it's worth it to us to buy them or not. So I do think that DC is kind of taking the best approach that they can to have these books appeal to the most amount of readers as possible, and to appease all of the different customers that they have. So I'm fine with it. I don't feel like I'm buying the same book again because I'm not. It's the same stories, but it's broken up in a different way, presented a different way, and I think that's great. I think that's I'd rather have it that way than. I would say that if these are something that interests you, if you are on board with getting as many of these editions as you can, I would recommend pre-ordering it. It's just a great way to show that the demand is there, and if they see that orders for volume 2 are very high, they can kind of already get started on volume 3, which I imagine volume 3 is in the works already, but it just kind of confirms that they will continue with those stories. Now, the big question will be, can they get to a volume 4? I don't know. We'll see. I always thought when they started with volume 1, my main goal was to get at least volume 1, 2, and then 3, which would be some of the post-return stuff. From there, we'll see. I don't know if we'll be able to get all the way to like the electric blue Superman stuff, which I would enjoy. I would enjoy if we got that far, but that's a lot to get ahead of ourselves. Let's pre-order copies of Volume 2 and then see where we go from there. So anyway, thank you very much for watching this one, and I will see you soon.